Good morning, and welcome to the next episode of Future Round Podcast Navigating the Courts with Jakub Popluhar. My guest today is Ben Dantowitz from the US. Before we start, I really want to give you a disclaimer. If you care about Roundnet and you're in position of growing the sport, either as a player or as a tournament director, or you're working one of the NGBs, you really should listen to this episode. Ben has been around for a while now in Roundnet, and he's one of the leaders of USA Roundnet, so United States of America Roundnet. And he's been growing the sport significantly. Throughout the years, he has a lot of lessons that he had learned the hard way usually, and he gives his expertise about running the events. For example, that he's paying people to collect balls, something that blew my mind personally. And also what you can do as a Roundnet player or Roundnet executive to improve the sport and make it serious. We get into a lot of stuff. We start with Spikeball Brookline conflict. So Brookline was the main distributor of Spikeball kits in Europe, but they had some misunderstandings and a lot of money was lost. And we share our thoughts on that, but we really don't dwell on it because it serves as a great reminder for us to be not only dependent on one brand or one company. Ben and I discussed the entitlement culture that we have in Roundnet, and everyone thinking, oh, they should come and do this for me because I'm a Roundnet player. Yes, well, the thing is, it is kind of time to sober up and get over the hype and be a little bit of realistic. So we touch on that as well. We get also a really in-depth about observing. So if you don't care about it, just skip to the next chapter. We have all the timestamps ready in the podcast or also in the video. Well, Ben and I had a lot of fun recording this, and I've learned a great bunch, even though I would consider myself an experienced tournament director or a Roundnet executive. Well, let's just go, dive in, attaque.
Future Roundnet.
Hi, Ben. So nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Jakub. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, it's been some time in the making. We both had some health issues. We're sick, traveling, and I'm very happy that we finally found the time, especially with the different time zones that we are in. Mm-hmm. So, guys, this is Atlantic crossing kind of interview. Like Ben is obviously in the East Coast in the US, and I'm somewhere in Europe, undisclosed location. Sometimes I really don't even know. So, Ben, maybe just start. What have you been up to recently? Because we have Discord servers in Europe and in the US, and I see you interacting a lot with people. You're organizing a lot of tournaments. You're also part of the US Roundnet. So what have you been up to lately before we get into the current trending topics in the Roundnet?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that like health's been an issue. I think the beginning of every calendar year is always a big like plan to organize a lot of events and get things like slated. So that's been a lot of my energy, both at like the national level and supporting as volunteer on the USA Roundnet national series, as well as like in the Northeast, figuring out what the East Roundnet series is going to look like. And also, running some events myself. So a lot of planning and checklists, as well as some other like initiatives for just like growing like local community as well. So it's been very busy, and being sick just means that my to-do list is unmanageable right now. It's exciting because it's like I pick all the things that are my hobbies, but I've got a lot of commitments that I'm working on.
Okay, maybe let me. Can you walk me through your to-do list? Do you have like special type of systems? Do you write everything in piece of paper? Are you using some project management tool? Because you can also not struggle with it, testing out different things. And
sure, I mean, I'll just say like, I think when everyone starts playing Roundnet, it's like a fun thing. So for me, I never wanted like my hobbies and my fun things to be like super serious and organized. So like for a long time, I refused to do any like project planning, any like organization, because I was like, if it's Roundnet, like if I remember to do it, then I do it and it's fun. And if I forget about it, it probably wasn't that important. And of course, over the years, now I've taken on like volunteer and leadership roles where things are a little more serious. So I'd keep like a formal like just like notes, like checklist to do app. And then I also like have some like different checklists depending on the projects I'm working on, where maybe it's a shared checklist with a team and there's like a Google spreadsheet and things like that. So I'm definitely really far away from being the expert because I kind of have spent a lot of time refusing to be serious about my Roundnet project management, and now I'm getting a little more mature with that over time. So I'm a terrible advisor for that. Don't ask me.
You've touched on something that is very close to my heart, and is actually making round or the hobby a little bit more professional, or taking it a little bit more seriously, because I think we share a lot of commonalities in this case, because I also started just as a hobby, then it turned out to be a business, then hobby again. But maybe we can get to it a little bit later down the road of this
Mm,
episode, so to say. But I want to just talk briefly, and I would like to highlight this briefly, about the trending topic, which is the Spikeball versus Brookline conflict, or issue. Brookline is the European, or was the European distributor for Spikeball equipment in Europe. And a lot of things have been said. Some things were shared online. I also shared all of these articles that both parties included, or sent out publicly. And I will maybe do a little bit intro as a preview, or maybe you even did a video where you shared the main
sure.
things and concepts. Could you maybe just like walk us a little bit into, just very briefly, I don't know, 30 seconds, what actually happened from the US side, or from your point of view?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I really have like a U.S. perspective. I think my perspective is just like asking the big questions of like where's all the money going? Like there's this debt and there's this sets, but the sets are gone. So I was just super curious, like not that I have any of the information, just like business wise, was the business being run well? But yeah, I think that the big bummer is just like these two companies tried to work together and like between them lost a lot of money some way, somehow. So yeah, bummer for Roundnet and bummer for both those companies and all the people involved. And I
But
think more people outside the company is also impacted too. So vibes were bad. Vibes were all bad.
yes, and it is very a shame. Brookline, who has been very present in the rounded European scene, especially Tom Schroys from Holland. Europeans are a little bit pissed because they like Brookline. Brookline was present there at the tournaments compared to Spikeball or Spikeball employees, especially in Europe. That's something that Chris Reuter, the Spikeball CEO, actually admitted or touched on also in his recent interview on Dead Roundnet podcast, hosted by Scott Biggs. I actually encourage you guys to listen to the interview, because Scott shared his opinions and his side of things, which I think is very, very important. But long story short, Brookline was buying stuff from Spikeball. They were selling amazingly, but there was a debt that came out from non-sold goods, I think in worth of 1.5 million euros. There were some fees included. Brookline thought, or they claimed that they are allowed to sell the remaining inventory back to Spikeball. Spikeball refused. The debt kept growing, and Spikeball stopped supplying Brookline, so they couldn't supply their customers, so to say, so big sport changes, and it all went south from there. So Brookline has no money. Spikeball lost apparently a significant amount of money, and there's a lot of lawyer talk, and things I also personally don't understand, because it's beyond the scope of my expertise, so to say. But there are some lessons to be learned, in my view. And if you look at this, Ben, what are some of the lessons that you think that we as a community could learn from this? If there are
Dang.
some.
Well, the one that if I could try to wrap it up succinctly, I think it would be that Spikeball lost a lot of money trying to invest in Roundnet, and it's one of a lot of things that Spikeball has spent money trying to invest in the sport. I think this time it was just worse because like another partner company also got involved and also lost money. So um, I think there's some other things. I guess I know it's a lot of Europeans that might listen to this podcast. I think one really confusing thing was like they were excited about Brooklyn, but I think Brooklyn was like writing checks they couldn't cash. So all the hype I think that like people felt from Brooklyn and the disappointment that they were going under. Um, I think a lot of people can relate to that in the U.S. where Spikeball has built a lot of hype for growing Roundnet, but the sport hasn't necessarily kept up with the pace of the hype, and now the hype around the world I think outpaces where Roundnet actually is. So I think it's just a reality check that Roundnet is still very small, still has a lot of work to do to grow, and you can't just get there with hype and excitement. You have to actually do the work. So that's been my example of the takeaway.
Actually, I couldn't have summed it up better. It's very true. I think it's good, as you said, reality check, because we all think, oh, it's amazing, it's big, we get millions of views on videos across social networks. I mean, that is partially true. But what I think a lot of Europeans, or maybe people in general, don't realize that Brookline was there and present, but it's just very tiny, the fraction of the business. Their business is not really to grow events or put up a beach flags. Their business is to sell spikeball equipment to all the big chain stores that we have in Europe. And those are pallets or containers, full containers of equipment that are people they are selling, which on the one hand is amazing because if you think about it, it's a lot of containers, it's a lot of sets. So it means a lot of people should be potentially playing, right? And then the big question is then where are these people? Because I know we had a similar conversation back in with Czech Roundnet. They sold thousands of sets in a small country, but the community is actually 40 people, more or less. I like the competitive side,
Sure.
but they sold sets for potentially tens of thousands of people. So this is something, okay, how can we get them to play? But like come back to Brookline, if you cannot do the main part of your job, the main source of your income, then things are going to go not they're going to go south again. So it's not going to work, right? If you don't have the cash flow.
Yeah, there's a lot of smart business people that could say smarter things than I could. But yeah, I don't have much more to say on Brookline. I know you're working on a couple more follow-up things. If you wanted to tease those, are you just getting like some more updates?
Yeah, so I'm writing an article. Maybe by the time you're listening to this, it's already been published. Okay, that's a deadline for me personally.
Link in the
It's
description.
published. Yeah. So
I'm putting the
maybe
editor to work.
yeah, the review of the article that is not finished yet, but will be by the time this hits the net, is basically like there is one business lesson that I've learned or that I've observed, and that is I've read this in business book. I think it's called Build to Sell a couple of years ago. It basically says you should not have one of your clients make more than 15 or 20% of your revenue. I think in the book is 15%.
Mm.
So also you have the 80-20 principle, right? But the point is if you are so dependent on one company or one client, in this case of Brookline, one supplier, which was Spikeball, if your client's not doing very well, you're not going to do very well. And Chris Ruder, the CEO, said that 2023 was very challenging to say the least on the podcast. So then you really don't have a strong foundation, right? And to demonstrate this, at the very first Fresh, for example, in Mallorca 2022, I got promised 16 sets from Spikeball, which we counted with, but they never arrived. They did not even arrive for the tournament. And in Mallorca, there is no community. But because I read this book and I was like, okay, what if this or that happened? I also talked to Bamball, Reshball, I believe at the time. So the German kit manufacturers companies, not only to promote their products, because I believe we need to promote different brands as well, or Zero Bounce, Premier Spike currently, of course. But what if Spikeball cannot deliver? And there was an issue with customs. And they delivered the set to America 1 week after, right? And we're like, the sets are in Barcelona, but we need them here. And then we played the tournament, all the different nets, and it was still fun. People had a great time. But I remember like, okay, luckily I got lucky. We escaped. Some people had their nets with them, but you just cannot be really focusing or like hoping for the best from one person or one company. And I believe that is the current situation, or at least the mindset we have in Roundnet, because everyone's kind of feel entitled for Spikeball to do things and to grow the sport. But Spikeball is ultimately just a kit manufacturer. They're not in
Well,
the business.
there's two parts of it, right? Like Spikeball wants to go Roundnet, and they do that in a lot of different ways that most people maybe don't see. But the one way that the average Roundnet consumer wants Spikeball to support the sport is just throw money at it. But at the same time, the average Roundnet player is not interested in like supporting Spikeball commercially. So that becomes a question of like the average Roundnet player, as I understand it, is wanting Spikeball to spend money and not get money back, but still say that that's like a good investment somehow. Of like, I don't buy stuff from Spikeball. Spikeball should give stuff to me, and I'm going to like badmouth Spikeball because they haven't done enough for Roundnet is not what most people I think in the world do, but it's what most people who are talking about Roundnet, whether it's like in communities or like online forums, is that's like the prototypical discourse I see right now, which is very confusing because you want Roundnet to grow, you want Spikeball to put money into it, but you don't want to support the company that supports Roundnet. And in the same way, whether it was Spikeball or any other manufacturer or an exogenous and outside sponsor of the sport, if State Farm wanted to come and support Roundnet, like I would consider getting State Farm insurance just to like show that Roundnet is valuable. I think the problem right now is Roundnet players say that Roundnet's valuable, but they don't want to show or build value in Roundnet itself. I know Germany is probably like the preeminent example in the world of a community like building value by focusing on a shared goal. And now we see the fruits of that labor. It's not easy. It's much more flashy to just say it happens, but now they're starting to have these events and sponsorships from just like German food brands and German nutrition brands, which is really impressive and didn't happen overnight and didn't happen because they demanded it. It's because they actually demonstrated value and then they got that in. So I know that's kind of how I think about all this when I think about the critiques for Spikeball or Brookline or whoever else.
That is very true. And if you want to support a sport, you also, and it's not a popular opinion, but it's an obvious one, you need to spend money. You need to put money
Well,
back.
money or time, right? You have to do a couple of things. You either have to spend money, have to spend your time doing like building the sport or like the capital of the sport, um, and you also maybe should like promote the like brands and or like entities that are doing that. So like Roundnet Germany being one of those, that's one where a lot of people locally have successfully done that. They promoted it, whether they've spent money on Roundnet Germany tournaments or if by word of mouth they've told their friends about Germany, Roundnet Germany, and that's also built the sport. So I think those are the two big levers, right? Time and money.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, for example, if there's a drink sponsoring the event, then you can go and tell your friends about the drink, right? Because that is the value to we're creating. If you don't want to spend the money, you get usually free samples at the tournament. Then, oh, I really like this one. I mean, and then you should tell your friends, especially if you like it, right? If you don't like it, probably don't tell, right?
Sure.
But this is the thing, and one of the main issues that we have in Roundnet, you can tell maybe how it's from your experience. If I say make money with Roundnet, all of people get scared. And it's like if I say the F word, or even worse, what do you want to make money with Roundnet? Do you want to charge like fees at tournament and actually have something left over? Like, why would you do that? And I've been
Yeah.
confronted with it a lot, not only recently, but ever since the beginning. I said, yeah, if I want to grow a business, I need to be profitable. I cannot be losing money, first of
Mhm.
all. And for example, Mallorca, this year, 2024, we had over 110 people. Did I make money or my company? Absolutely. Is there someone crazy enough to work 2 months full time and not get anything like financially? I mean, if they are, I like them, love them. Yeah. Okay, I found the one. Yeah. But it just is a token of appreciation, at least. And if
Yeah.
we create, in my view, more opportunities within Roundnet that I've been trying, for example, where you have paid positions and you don't have to work for Spikeball, I think the whole ecosystem can grow.
Yeah. The question that I try to ask people is what is Roundnet worth to you? Like you have all this fun, you go to these events, you make these like memories, you have these fun plays, you have these experiences, like that's worth something. And so right now, part of the challenge I see with entitlement around like, oh, Spikeball should just like give us money as if that's the only place money can come from and it can't come from like people or grassroots is like by not appreciating the value of Roundnet itself, then we start to get situations where people are saying, "Where is the prize money for me? Where are all these resources going when I spend money on a tournament?" Because people are somehow valuing the experience of a tournament at €0, $0.
Mhm.
But if we have the honest conversation that you actually did have a good time, you actually do enjoy playing in the European Tour Series, in the U.S. Tour Series, in the Asian Federation Tour Series, and the STS, and that's an experience that you like having and sharing with your friends and making new ones, all of a sudden we can start to understand the value of Roundnet, and then if we can market that value of Roundnet, that's where things really start to pick up. But right now, the conversation is, like you mentioned, it's stigmatized. I think money is stigmatized outside of Roundnet, which is a separate like global problem that we
Mhm.
can't solve with this one conversation. But yeah, just the idea that you could get paid to do the thing you want to do, if you're serving people is definitely like a under discussed topic. And I think it starts with people not really valuing Roundnet for itself.
I agree, and
Like, could you
especially
put
if
a price? Could you put a price on it? How much fun you've enjoyed like playing in a tournament?
uh,
Have you had like 100 euros of fun before? 200 euros of fun?
actually, as a matter of fact, I do because I have expensive hobbies. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, yeah, and for depending on everyone's hobbies are different, and I know the prototypical Roundnet player, especially in the U.S., the European community is a little more mature by age and occupation
yeah,
generally. So a lot more like young players in the U.S. that don't have an income. But yeah, whatever you do for leisure that isn't Roundnet, you can at least compare it to that. Whether it's if you go to the movies or if you go skiing on a weekend, and just you can compare the prices of what you spend on the things and compare the enjoyment. And you could probably start to figure out what Roundnet's worth to you from like a utility standpoint. And yeah, some of that utility should go back to if you're running a tournament in Mallorca, like you definitely should get compensated. And
exactly.
I'll reflect. I get compensated sometimes. Sorry, I was long winded.
Exactly. For example, if you, as an example, and European tournaments are generally cheaper than the US, I mean, US is generally more expensive, but it
Oh yeah,
is
we can cover that too. Yeah.
excepting, you also guys, you make more money. In generally speaking, I mean, obviously there are differences, but if I pay 40 euros for a tournament, that's 20 euros per person for a day of fun from 8 a.m. till in Europe,
In
unfortunately,
Europe, midnight.
till
Yeah.
10 p.m. because the tournaments finish way too late. But it's a completely different topic.
Yep.
Um,
That's what I'm an expert on that topic. I don't know what we're talking about now. I'm not an expert on business, but I'm happy to talk it with you. Um, yes.
but
The cost of tournaments is also another one that's hard to get into.
just what I wanted to highlight, then you have 20 euros for 12 hours of fun or like meeting people
Maybe
from,
like 2 hours of not fun though if you're like playing like Paul Sima or something though.
I like playing ball, but as well, I'm retired. I cannot
Speak for
commentate on
yourself.
that, which is much better.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe to wrap up the topic from Spikeball and Brookline, what I would like to point out is that all of us, like you, me, and thousands of other people, or hundreds that we know by name, have been having an amazing time making like friendships and memories for their entire lifetimes, traveling Europe, traveling the US. Or I played in Colombia, I played in the Philippines, and it was absolutely insane. And it is because of the company Spikeball, because they actually put it on the map, right? Should we be so dependent on them in long term? I don't think so. Should we go and look for some other ways of getting money into sport and into structures? Absolutely. But it just really, it doesn't offend me. I'm just makes me sad a little bit that people take a lot of things for granted and are not really grateful for it, because as Chris said, you have 23 employees right now. They had more, they had less, and they've made it known worldwide. They've been in ESPN. Mark Cuban's talking about it from Shark Tank, the American billionaire. Luka Doncic is playing in the NBA. I played with Novak Djokovic, his Spikeball. So it's crazy, right? This is just a handful of people with big dream. So maybe we should just ask, as you said,
Yeah.
ask
I
ourselves.
think we can do both, right? I think we need to do both. We need to have a little bit of gratitude for not just what Spikeball's on, but anybody that's like put their like time in to grow the sport. And at the same time, you can still have expectations of like whether it's Spikeball and how they contribute to growing around it in the future, or how your local club or how your local leaders like grow the sport. Like you can do both. You can be grateful and like um ask for things and hold people accountable and set expectations. But you can't just do one. If you do one, then it's like a little bit much for me.
Yes, and there is a fine balance between it. I actually talked to Marcel from Roundnet Germany. We exchanged a couple of messages recently when he also said it. For example, when we have NGB's meeting, I raise questions or I ask questions that are not very comfortable because I want to hold people accountable. Whereas sometimes you're like, oh, we are so grateful and thankful that someone's doing it, that you're not even looking like, okay, are doing a great job, or are they the
Yeah.
right people in the charge? And I think this is such a delicate balance where we just need to seek more conversations, more understanding, not looking for our egos, and like swallow the egos and just listen and ask people of more experience, maybe from different sports, when it comes to growing a niche sport, so to say, and see, try things out, do things out, and learn. I mean, it's
Yeah.
all
I think
about
I've said
doing
this
and
a lot.
learning.
I think I've said this a lot before in some other like content I've worked on, but just that like we're all trying to make Roundnet better. So as long as we like remember that and that's like the shared goal, then we'll probably do good things. But yeah, the pieces of like having the right people in leadership and all that, like, I mean, you can't really have the best right people in any role if you have only volunteers up and down the ecosystem. So you kind of just have to be grateful for who's willing to put in the time and show up, and you build up those people to be the best volunteers they can be. But I don't think you can even be too much more critical than that. Otherwise, you just are going to paralyze yourself in getting this work done, at least for the next near term.
Hmm. I see what you mean, because there's
Yeah.
this idea that we'll just be doing because it's fun and it's volunteering. But I don't personally think it's sustainable, because eventually people are going to get families, they have different priorities. And then I'm not talking only about money, it's also about recognition. But it starts with money, just getting 10 euros for if you are a coach and you lead a training session, you prepare for 2 hours, then have a training session, then you evaluate. So maybe you spend 6 hours doing that, you get 10 euros. Can you buy a dinner kebab? Maybe one. It depends on which city. But it's nice. It's about the feeling. Okay, maybe in the next couple of years, months, if we have more, we can invest more, put more in the sport. So I completely agree. Ben, you've been doing amazing job in a lot of ways. I don't know where to start. Observing, streaming, the Roundnet Network. I understand is also one of your projects, right? And then US Roundnet. Could you maybe walk us a little bit through that Roundnet Network, just briefly? Because if you guys haven't seen the videos, this next level content, like, wow, it's really amazing and really gives amazing power of storytelling. But I just want to know, or I would like you to tell people how many hours of work is behind, let's say, one video, because I know it's crazy. I filmed coaching videos, prepared the app, and it's crazy amount of hours. So how did Roundnet Network came to fruition, and how much work is it actually?
Well, first, thank you for the kind words. Yeah, I just keep picking up projects because I get ideas and I have a little bit of time, so I start and then I'm a bad quitter, so I just keep doing the things.
Welcome to
Um, but yeah, for Round Network, it was about the fall of 2022. Uh, I've streamed Roundnet content for about 9 years now. So some way or another, I've always known I wanted to improve content. And a good friend of mine, Albert Tong, is like a full on documentarian, like just legit video guy. Um, and so if this is the first time hearing about Round Network, I feel for you. You should just pause this video and go look up Round Network on YouTube. But yeah,
absolutely.
just to speak to some of the hours, I mean, Albert has put in like pretty much like a full-time job in 2023, and for me it was pretty much like a part-time job in 2023 of just like hours put in for whether it's like pre-production or like day of filming stuff. I think the way I'd best summarize like some of the documentaries that Albert like pulled together with like the college championship and like the pro championship from the STS last year is that if you saw the work being done at the field, like filming and like interviewing people for not just Saturday, but also Thursday, Friday, just like sitting people down and doing interviews in like one of the I guess we'll call it our like little studio we had on site. That was probably like 2% of the hours that were put into the project. And I think that's like a really confusing thing because most of the content that we've seen in the community are like very like grassroots, very like simple stuff, like one camera angle, just record it, upload, maybe like cut up a highlight video with clips. But yeah, the synthesizing multiple camera angles and for a gameplay or for like an overall like story, putting that all together is just like a very different process that hasn't really been done for the sport ever. And so it is really hard to understand and evaluate like how is this happening? Where is it coming from? Um, and of course, we mentioned like the volunteer aspect of some of the things like you can either like divide the number out to be very small, or you can say that most of the time is just like really unpaid or underpaid to get it done, just out of like love and passion for Roundnet. But yeah, like a single game you might watch on YouTube if it's like a 15-20 minute game that probably took about 2 hours minimum of just like getting stats generated, getting like graphic cards ready, making sure like the slow motions and the replays look good, quality checking them. So yeah, it takes a little bit of time and that's all like given you've got like everything perfectly organized too. So there's a lot of pre-production that goes into making things work well. But I appreciate the kind words. The goal for that continues to just be can we do more cool things with content and Roundnet, and similar to everybody else that's out there, like can we get this out to more people and get them excited to go play, because ultimately we want people to like feel like Roundnet's a normal thing, and so doing good content around it makes it feel more like a legit normal thing, even if it's really far from being legit and big yet.
And I mean, again, I appreciate so much since I've done some video work, some editing work, and just writing the scripts or preparing, setting up the stage, the scene, the lights, and have all the equipment. It's just crazy. Like I never thought, and I did probably like a tiny bit, like 5% of what you guys did. I was like, wow, this is like respect for all the video guys. I had Ruben Schroeder from Roundnet Sports Photography
Mhm.
here. We talked in German for about 2 hours
Yeah,
because people also think, oh, he's a cameraman, he's a photographer. So he goes, he takes pictures, and that's it. He just posts it online.
yeah,
Then he went a little bit in detail that he takes around 5,000 pictures every day. And then at the end, there are only 300. Then he edits them. And he's doing it like for 3 days. And then
right.
obviously there's a full-time job as a teacher, so he cannot do it during his working
Mhm,
hours and all stuff. So also one of the reasons I started this podcast was to show people there is so much more depth behind individuals in Roundnet. There's not only, okay, I don't know, I'm Jacob, the Roundnet player who trains a lot or used to train a lot, but it's about, okay, as a human and how things actually work. Because this is the beautiful thing about Roundnet community, that people come from all across, from all different
mhm,
fields, from IT, engineering, or maybe just electrician, or someone who's repairing cars, right? And I just love listening to the stories.
mhm.
So this is maybe a nice segue. What do you actually do for a living, Ben?
Sure. I'm basically like a technology like professional, and in the US I have like a job called consultant, which basically just means that given the year I might be working on a different project. So, some years I've been like doing like coding and like having to test programs and help like, test projects and code before it goes live in production. Sometimes I've had to analyze budgets and do like some data analysis. So like it's a very weird word I think that's used in the US, and it's like a very murky industry, but generally speaking, I think it's similar to actually how I approach Rounded is I get to start a new project once in a while. I have to learn a lot of things and humble myself, and then usually I have to make like, like a PowerPoint and tell people what's right or what's wrong and then fix it or help them fix it. And usually actually very similar to Roundnet, I have to like really prove my case and be like a good speaker and communicator on it, which I'm not the best at. I'm just okay, I think. And yeah, so I definitely like have the opportunity to take a lot of the things I've done in my professional work as a consultant into Roundnet, and vice versa, where I just get to like learn, be humbled, and then try to connect more people, and then move forward with the right solution or the best one that I can find at the time.
Oh, I love it. I had no idea that it was so. I only have the German word in my head right now. Vielfältig. Not even the German one. Vielfältig, I guess. Yeah, I think in three different languages from time to time it
Yeah,
gets confusing. That you have so many different ways, or it's so heterogenic. Uh,
sure. Yeah, it's very changing, very changing. But
yes.
yeah, but like right now, like my current job is like I consult. I live near Washington D.C., so it's just like
Mhm,
I get to consult with like usually it's like government projects, and they're just working on fixing some problem to help the public with whatever the thing is. Like the public needs a lot of help,
mhm.
and then they then the government needs a little extra help with doing specifics like special things. So that's kind of how that works. I don't know, the same way you might get like a coach for Roundnet. You get like some consultants to help you figure out a problem, and they help you solve it, and then they leave, and then you hopefully can do a better job helping the people around the country. Usually, sometimes it doesn't go great, but for the most part.
With the exception as a rounded coach, you don't get paid very well, if at all.
That's true. Yeah. The good thing about the jobs I have is that they pay like a real job, but the Roundnet jobs I have are either volunteered, which is I think important for some things to be volunteer, but for the other ones, it's either underpaid or like not paid, or um, or if people steal balls and I'm running a tournament, then I just have to pay for new balls. So it's yeah, all the things.
Yeah, that is crazy. I
Yeah.
actually listened to Joe Rogan podcast the other day, and they said the US government has around 2 million employees and other 10 million as contractors, roughly,
Yeah. So
which is
so
crazy.
the other crazy thing, and this is like neither of us, I guess, are experts on this, but it's like the state of contractors in the government for the US is just like so broken. But I guess for if you're not American, the long story short, from my like pretty under informed opinion, medium informed opinion, is basically the people who work in government are kind of like the people that volunteer for Roundnet, where they like know that they could be making more money doing other things, but they're really passionate about the cause, which is like serving the public or serving Roundnet. And so they like get like PhDs. They're like very high level, like smart people, and then they like go work a very like medium paying, low paying job in the government. And then most of the people are in the industry making more money. And then those people get hired as contractors to get paid a lot by the government to help solve the problems, because the people working in the government, a lot of them are amazing, but not everybody in the government is like, it's not the best of the best. The smartest people are getting paid a ton of money in private industry, private sector,
Mhm.
versus I can't speak to how the industry works in public industries or governments in Europe or around the world, but in the US, that's pretty much how we've set up our government is it's not the most important thing, but like, so it can only do so well because it doesn't
Okay.
people don't bring in the best talent to work in the government, and then they have to hire contractors.
Okay. Very
Yeah,
interesting. I
there's so
like
much there are much better YouTube video essays I think about that if you want to go look it up. I didn't think you were gonna put me on the spot there, Jakob.
No, no, it was just as I said, I'm trying to understand it, and I love the comparison. I love the comparison. It's like people around it. That's good.
Yeah, try to make it accessible. About, of course, it's like a round that centric podcast. We're not trying to talk about like the U.S. economy.
No, we are not experts in that, and at some point I'll have experts in their specific topics. But you're expert in Roundnet and a lot of topics actually in Roundnet, as we mentioned earlier, of the video and the things you have been doing with Roundnet USA. So I would like to talk a little bit about that Roundnet USA, and the then touch on the observers, because
Sure.
also in Europe we have now by EURA the Observer Initiative, and I actually looked it up the other day in a preparation for this as well, that we actually even have a Excel form for the observers
Mhm.
where they can be evaluated from other people. I haven't figured out which people yet, but they we're gonna get there, because I used to work as a referee. So maybe let's stick with the observers first.
Sure.
You were leading the project for the IRF, I believe, for the first Worlds, and you and a bunch of other people in the committee created the USAR Observer Committee, right? And the Observer Test. Am I correct?
Yeah. So a little history. So my brother Ezra and myself have both observed a lot over the years because we've played for a long time and we've never been the best. So we're always around at tournaments. And we also are really good at reading. We always have read the rules. So we always know what the rules are. So we're really good at we built up a skill set of observing over time. And in 2021, um, Ezra, myself, Dan Abrams, and Ian Slattery, forgive if I'm forgetting one or two other names, worked on a US based observer committee where we kind of tested out a couple hypotheses at tournaments. We tried different positioning. We took notes on things. We gave each other feedback. And then over the course of 2021, we kind of finalized officiating guidelines. And then for 2022 in Worlds, Ezra volunteered on the IRF committee to kind of just
Mhm.
hand that package over to the IRF. And I think now the IRF has given that package to like Roundnet France has set up some processes, and I think EURA has also set up some processes that are pretty much like the same like theory of observing. And now yeah, the EURA has also set up this like evaluation matrix on top of that, where they're trying to have like different levels of certification. Where in the US, um, it's been something we haven't had resources to actually like have levels of certification where that makes sense to do. Because for the US, we're still building the backlog of just getting more people reading the rules, getting observer certified. So I'm very excited because I know it's a new population in Europe. So I'm excited to see if more people can get certified in Europe, if more people are going to graduate through the steps. And yeah, like you mentioned, there's like this evaluation matrix, which is done. It's supposed to be done by a peer observer who's already higher level certified, basically evaluating someone during the game. I haven't gotten feedback, like a ton of feedback or notes from ERA and like followed up with them much, but I my like 2 cents on, I guess, like who observes the observer is, I personally would have it be someone who's not playing or not observing the game with you, but just like a third party who's not observing. But the big challenge there is there's just no observers. So how are you going to have a certified observer observing you and not actively observing the match? Is I think probably the compromise that was made. If I had to guess what was going into like that process of evaluating someone that's on the net with you. So ultimately, I think a lot of people again want Roundnet to be more legit, but this is like one more tangible way to walk the walk and like learn the rules, get observer certified, and the sport gets a little bit better if you do that. Despite people maybe not wanting to read.
I've been in this situation, I would even say many times before, because I like to read. There's no secret. And I worked as a handball referee for 8 years, ever since I was, I think, 14 till 20. And I officiate also quite high. And if you officiate in a village derby or rival game where you have 200 people in a very cramped like, gymnasium where they are threatening you, they're gonna kick your ass, and literally some like I didn't have to run like once it was very close after a game. Then you need to know your rules, and then you need to know how to sell yourself and all the things. And it happened to me in 2021 a lot, for example, that there was a clear carry and they were like, no, it wasn't. I was like, yeah, you literally just almost threw the ball. That was before carries were legal. 18-18 the game 3 against very good team. So I know, I was like, yeah, it's a clear carry. No, it's our point. I was like, okay,
Yeah,
do you at least know it's our point? It's like no one's
I
swaying
just want to
you.
make one connection is and actually last year I like refereed like soccer or football and I
Yeah,
umpired baseball too. So like I definitely have that background as well of just like I don't know managing other sports, but people who are like making like presumptive calls here, it's the same through line about entitlement of like I deserve to win this game. Like I don't care about the rules. Like no, like this is like I'm gonna make the call my way, and like very little humility and like perspective to read the rules and just like if we all knew the rules a little bit better, we probably would have fewer of these situations. So it just and as an aside, like I've also worked on trying to solve rule ambiguity because
yeah.
it is such a sore subject for a lot of people of disagreeing about calls or how do they interpret the rules. So yeah, trying to get all those standards clear for everybody is like a really big passion point of mine. Just because it does pay dividends and actually like makes the sport not
Yeah.
only like more accessible and better, but hopefully the community a little bit more like tight knit instead of like fighting.
It is also so frustrating. I mean, and I guess I know when you write emails and when you put so much work in it and then people don't read it. I mean, before the tournaments, then they have all the same questions. I even made like frequently asking questions when it comes to fresh. And my people, quotation marks, there's like, when was this email? When are we meeting? I was like, it's everything there. Like everyone's
Yeah.
reading,
Well,
but
this is the big charge to everybody is like how good of a roundnet citizen are you? Like, are you like I think everybody needs to like level up not just their skills but also like their like just general like adulthood, general like competence as a functioning member of not just society but like the roundnet community. If we all are operating at a higher level, not only does it mean that we can do all these things that are fun and like better, but it'll also make it easier to welcome people into the community, grow the sport, and make it more valuable. So again, I think these are tangible like things that are hard to like isolate, but once you see them, you know that you've got yourself a better community, better sport. Uh, so I'm super interested in these like little weedy, nitpicky stuff because I think it adds up, right? Like any
absolutely.
habit, it all adds up, and it also I think really does come back to like this entitlement of like I don't have to read an email, and it's like how can you not want to read an email, but you want whatever things you want from Roundnet? Like you can't have it both ways. I think you could not care and be like really apathetic, and that I think that would be I won't judge you for it, but if you're apathetic and you don't want anything, I don't mind. But if you're like indignant and you also have demands at the same time, not that like I think that's like not cool. I don't know what to do with that. Like how can I help you personally? Like as a community member, if I'm the TD, I can't help you if you don't read the email.
Yeah,
So
I
I do
tried
my best.
also making videos and emails. Like I remember spending half a day writing one email to make it as concise as possible. But maybe it is me being perfectionist or just trying to improve my writing skills. And
Mhm.
also, to be fair, a lot of emails that you get so from Roundnet TDs are not good, are super long. and could be explained
Right.
very
I think for
quickly.
me too, I'm a terrible communicator, so when I write an email, I'm like, "Oh, this is really long and bad, but please read it anyway," right? Like, I can relate
There's
to you.
there's fine line, like, okay, we also need to hold ourselves accountable as TDs. Like, yeah, there are some they're doing amazing job, then others are writing essays, which is also nice. I mean, as long as it's funny, I like to read an essay if it's funny,
Sure.
you know, stuff like that. But to really like highlight the point with the observers and the rules, everyone wants, or like a lot of people try to, okay, let's grow the sport, let's do this better. But those incremental changes, as you said, add up. And I'll give you an example. What happened to me once, I was asked to observe as one of the most experienced players there about it. On a tournament, there was like, okay, so players were telling me, so you can call the food drag and don't do any no hit zone. And they literally asked me like what I can do and I cannot do. I was like, sorry, if I'm observing, active call is no hit zone, it's foot drag, those are rules. No, we don't want no hit zone. That's no, we'll do it ourselves. It's like semifinals of a big tournament. Like, no, and we started an argument. I was like, if you want me not doing that, I cannot observe. I'm not willing to observe. And I think I left. I remember like,
Yeah, if you're yeah, it's so this is a separate thing, which is like I don't think the observer and officiating guidelines are like perfect, and I think they continue to like be improved upon to try to give the players the best like experience, right? Like ultimately, that's the goal is to make the sport better. But yeah, I think sometimes that's an example to me of players maybe wanting the sport to be in a certain state, but like we're not there. Like this is where we are right now. We can get there, but we can't just like pretend we're there. The same way we can't pretend that the sport's really big. We can't pretend that like the rules are this way or that the officiating process is this way. Like we should follow the processes, and if we want to change them, we should change them. But yeah, I think a lot of times we're like really quick to take shortcuts, and then like we can't keep track of that, right? Oh yeah, in this tournament they played it this way, but we didn't write it down, and then they played that way at that tournament, but we also didn't write it down, and we didn't take video of it to test if it was better or worse because we didn't want to take video of it. That's too much work. So all these things add up. They all add up.
and how do you get observers on your tournaments? And then obviously the next level would be getting someone to evaluate observers, because it's very difficult to give feedback anyway to anyone, and that is a skill itself. People are running like workshops for thousands of euros or dollars to teach people how to give feedback. But if you're not trained and you don't have, let's say, you and me with the board, like, okay, this was good, you missed this goal, or whatever. Like, first, how do you get observers, and what would be the next steps? Like, how do you get those people who are actually evaluating observers? Probably not
Sure.
this year or next year, but have you thought about it a little bit?
Yeah, plenty. I mean, I think about more things than I have time to work on, and like that's just how round it is. So, yeah, if anybody ever wanted me to work a full time roundnet job, I could get a lot of stuff done. I think so. That's what I would love to do.
I
But
agree.
for observing right now when I run tournaments, I mostly run tournaments in the U.S. If anybody wants me to run one somewhere else, give me a call. I'm happy to run a tournament anywhere in the world for if you pay me to get there. Um, but yeah, I look at who's coming to my tournament and I look at who is US certified to observe. And then I just make sure I have all those people on my list on my roster basically, because your observers are usually just part of your players. And I also tell all the players that are coming if they want to get paid to observe to get certified before the weekend. And then I just pay I pay all the observers $20 a match, which is to my understanding probably the highest rate anybody's paid an
Wow.
observer like on average for a long time. And I think this is an example of like you get what you prioritize. So for me, like I prioritize players having observers because I think it improves the experience. So I'm
Yeah.
willing to pay people to do that, and I also am not willing to pay people that are not certified because again, they like someone might be totally capable of observing, but if they haven't like taken the steps to get certified, then like I think even despite the fact that I volunteer for USA Roundnet, like I think it is a disservice to like the sport and community to just like kind of do whatever you want willy nilly with the process and say, oh, like Jakob, like you can observe, that's totally fine, even though you haven't. I know you've been certified, I think, in the U.S. as well,
Yeah.
because you're a madman and you travel here. But for someone who wasn't and maybe could be a good observer, I just tell them every time like, oh yeah, like you should totally get certified. Would love to do that. And yeah, then I pay them to observe because I think I value it as a sport builder and community builder, and the players appreciate having observers that have experience and have certified themselves. And of course, then the observers appreciate getting like a little bit of of pay towards their gas or flight or whatever. So yeah, that's how I take part of my budget is I prioritize that. For evaluating observers at tournaments, I don't have a good way to do that still.
Mhm.
Um, Usually when I'm running a tournament, and as you and other folks may know, tournaments do not run themselves. So I'm usually worrying about like 17 things. But if it's the finals and I'm like cleaned up or doing a good job cleaning up, or if it's a more small tournament and it's just a casual thing that I it's not as like crazy, maybe I will take some time to watch how observers are doing personally, just to maybe give them some feedback from my like years of experience. But um, yeah, that's still I think a challenging thing is people still evaluate observers by like if they liked the calls they made and not by like, hey, did they get it? Did they act professionally? Did they get into the positions they were supposed to be in? And yeah, I know I've also spent some time training and teaching and coaching observers um, all over the North America and European areas. So trying to do more of that and getting like more of that information out there is definitely a passion of mine too, because uh, we're pretty mediocre at it at best right now.
Especially in such a difficult sport, which is difficult to see even in
Oh,
slow
it's
motion.
super fast. It's super fast. It's really hard. Yeah. So it's. I mean, I think the reason I'm good at observing is because it's a skill I've practiced. I don't think it's because I'm special. It's the same way that there's people who are really good at anything. It's just a craft. So, yeah, the more I can practice that craft, the more I can promote that craft being practiced, and also reward people for practicing the craft. Um, yeah, I think that's one of the things that makes Rounded a little better. So, yeah, I appreciate you asking.
I've been thinking about this because, as I said, I officiated handball, which is apparently not the easiest sport to officiate because it's full contact. If
Sure.
you guys, especially our American viewers, haven't seen, just type European handball highlights from Worlds or whatever, and you'll see that's we actually say handball is the most American sport Americans don't know about.
Oh, I like that. I might say that Australian football is, but
That's just brutal. That's just brutal. I lived in Australia. Man, that's just brutal. But yeah, footy,
sorry, that's like actually one of my favorite sports to watch. I just haven't
really.
watched it much, but yeah, that one's crazy.
What I wanted to add was when with you paying $20, that's for a series, right? Not for one game. That's for a series. So that's
um,
better if it's
oh,
two.
sorry, yes, per series, yeah. So about like $20 an hour, yeah,
Okay, no,
yeah.
perfect.
Good,
Because
good catch, good catch. If I said $20 a game, my bad, and I would owe a lot of people a lot of money. But yeah, I usually pay about $20. I like to pay $20 an hour, so I pay someone $20 an hour to observe, but I also will pay someone $20 an hour to like pick up all the nets and balls and like clean up at the end of the day, or to set up at the beginning. I'll pay people 15 to $20 an hour usually.
because I think in Europe even it's even more not on demand, but it has higher potential in a way that we have a lot of different countries and they are in different places economically.
Mhm.
So 10 euros an hour in Germany is like, oh my goodness, I'm not even going to look at you. Whereas in some countries, don't take that. Okay, I can say Slovakia, let's say Slovakia, country I'm originally from. It's like, whoa, 10 hours an hour, like 10 euros an hour. Wow, let's go. I'll sign up
Mhm.
just to observe. And there's a bunch of countries like that. And then if you're not the best player, you can at least try to be a very good observer. So you get to observe great games, first of all, and then it may pay for your tournament or even for your flight or you have some money on the side. I remember me working as a handball referee, went to Sweden, and I just officiated as many games as I could for 3 days, and I made I don't know back then 10 years ago, I made like 300 euros, which for me was wow. Like, my parents would
Mhm.
make like 600, 700 a month as teachers 10, 15 years ago. Right. So I would make it in 4 days or 3 days in Sweden. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. Like, where's the next tournament? Right? And if you can get like this initiative going, then I'm pretty sure we would invite more people in. They may not be as talented round players, but they can be absolutely great observers because they, as you said, they get reps. It's a skill. And this
Mhm.
is something that I try to teach people. Observe your pickup games. Like just start also just working with the no-hit zone and learn how to be observer, especially if it's five of you, right? So the one person is always out in most cases. Just learn practice that because, and this is what strikes me. You've never observed or you're very inexperienced, but you get observers start being in game in semifinals of the best European Tour series. I mean, not anymore, but like last year. Okay, and you learn with the best immediately. But when I started refereeing, I had all the kids under 10, under 12, under 14. Still tried to do the best job, but I sucked. I was terrible because I just started. Right. So it's all about getting the reps as in any skill. And maybe we can make observing more
Yeah.
lucrative that, okay, it's going to pay for a tournament or you don't pay tournament fee as an example, like that one person. Then I think we could motivate more people to become better observers.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think officiating is one of the many, many things that could benefit from more resources in our sport. And so it's a game of like Tetris, or like, yeah, how do you get all the pieces together? Which one do you put in first? And what's the biggest priority is always a big challenge. So right, like you could have a lot of fun spent on, you know, you mentioned like working with like Reuven, very capable photographer, and having really good media. You could spend funds on that, and that could really be a good valuable thing for the sport. So there's lots of things that can be good for a sport, and if you have all of them, great. But if you have almost none of them, it's hard to know where to start. And so you just kind of have to pick something and then keep going and building.
What is your, like you said, Tetris? So okay, you have the
Mhm.
observers, you have the fields, you have the prize money. I would figure you have the extra food at tournaments. So what are some of the building blocks when you're running a tournament? Does it differentiate between if you're running a local event or STS event, like big event?
Um, Yeah, I think that, well, the bigger the event, the more I charge so that I can put on a better experience, right? So if I'm running a small casual event, maybe it's 10, $20 a person, sometimes, you know, even less maybe. And if it's a bigger tournament, maybe it's 40, 50, $60 per person for the experience in the day. Depending on what the scope is. And actually, to answer your question, I haven't figured out exactly how I order all those things. I think one thing that I think helps with how I decide them, I will say, is I've done just about everything in Roundnet. I've won cash prizes at tournaments. I've observed. I've run tournaments. I've sucked and gotten knocked out in the first round. I've volunteered at tournaments. I've commentated. So and I've done streaming, and I've done video production, assisting, and uh, I couldn't tell you which one's the most important, but I know that all of those things take hard work. So I think what one really cool thing I would encourage players to do is just to get more perspective. If you're only ever a player and you want more prize money in the sport, just know there's a lot of other good things that could be getting done to make the experience for you better, more enjoyable. I picked up balls at tournaments. I think that's actually one of the most underrated things in the world. Is if you just pick up balls. You know, there's like ball boys, ball girls at like tennis
Yeah.
events. Imagine you're playing around a tournament. You never have to go pick up balls.
Wow. That sounds like sci-fi.
Right? Right, but, like, it's like, the way it happens is you pay someone to pick up balls for everybody and just walking around the field and making sure the nets are full, and, I've paid Kuba, at least one time I paid him, and I've paid other people to do that for me for even if just, like, an hour or 2, just, "Hey, like, just go pick up balls and make sure people aren't out of balls, and they don't have to waste their time." Um, I haven't done, like, all the math on it, but, like, you get money back if you pay by hour for a field, and games are longer because people have to go pick up balls. You can have observers settle disagreements. You have people pick up balls. If you can have, people make sure scores are getting put in onto your tournament apps. All these things make the tournament go faster. And if you go faster, then you spend less money on your hourly field. So there's some of these things are not only like quality of life experience improvements, but also might be financial, returns too. So yeah, I'm always thinking about all this stuff, Jakob. I appreciate you letting me just brain dump a little bit. I would love to have the answer to the best like tier list to all these, but I'm still testing with it. And every time I run a tournament, I learn something new, and I try something different. You know, maybe it's not a different thing that people are like, "Wow, can't believe you did this," because it's usually hidden or secret, or
Mhm.
just a small tweak. But yeah, I'm always learning.
I'm like a sponge because you ran much more rounded tournaments than I have. I mean, I've run a lot of different type of events, but
I would
with the
say,
ball thing is
yeah.
actually so smart. But I have a counter question because what we've been having in Europe is people bring their own balls, special balls, into the tournament
Mhm.
and they play with it because
Yeah.
it has the best cut, the best grip. And Roundnet Germany actually started a rule that the both parties need to accept the balls that they're going to be played with,
Mhm.
right? Because almost all of us on the highest level had the experience. Okay, I don't want to be an asshole. Sorry for the a hole, whatever.
Yeah.
Not for kids anyway.
I know the IRF had to publish a technical directive for ball selection last year because of probably what was going on in Germany. To my understanding, is that players need to agree to the balls. All the balls are being used. Maybe you 5 or 6 in rotation, and if a new ball gets introduced into the fray because balls come around, then you have to all agree that that's also good to use. Um, yeah, that's one of those things that is fascinating because you could have your one ball and you could agree to play with it with your opponents too. But once you agree, you also like hit that one serve and the ball is gone forever. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's not it's like the ecosystem or like the structure of Roundnet events right now is just like you have to actually approve of like all the balls basically.
But this is the thing. If you, I think it happened in Mallorca, then the final is people go running after a ball, even though it's been boomed 50 meters away and everyone's waiting. And this is exactly the thing, because then the tournaments take long. And that will be
Sure,
one of the reasons why in Europe, like the current, like two ETSs, and I cannot wait to talk about it with my next guest sometime soon,
sure,
is they end so late.
yeah,
And this is not going to be a popular segment, but I got to ask you, because I know you have so much expertise on this.
okay.
How can we make tournaments, first of all, shorter so they don't last so long? And second of all, if you actually like the structure that we have of tournaments, because to give you some context, I don't think it's very sustainable if you're playing 12 hours on Saturday and Sunday, warming up, cooling down, but it's then physiological perspective. But maybe let's just start with how can we make tournaments shorter, or rather, how can players make sure that tournaments end up on time? So not everyone has to go to McDonald's or other fast food restaurant at 11 p.m. because everything else is closed.
I mean, it's something that everybody has to want. Like I think um I've run a lot of tournaments, and I know you mentioned like you've only run so many tournaments. I think another thing is I think I've this might be a fact. If not, it's just maybe I'm close. I think I may have attended more tournaments by more tournament directors, different tournament directors than almost anybody.
Mhm.
And so that lets me just see like how people are running tournaments, but not only that, but how the players are. There's a different group of players to every single tournament, and so in my experience, I've seen the culture of players at all sorts of tournaments around mostly just Europe and then the US, where depending on the player culture, they kind of set the pace for how the tournament goes. I've run tournaments with people that are very new to Roundnet that are, I think, a lot more proficient in just following directions. And I tell them when to start games, when to play games, and they say, okay, that sounds good. And they go play their games and they report their scores, and then the tournament flows very smoothly. And I think in the ecosystem that we're mostly focusing on here, not like small casual tournaments that I can experience anecdotally, is if we want tournaments to run faster, like yes, tournament directors maybe can set the vision for that, but also like players need to actually play. And um, there's a lot of variables that come into that. Sometimes there's a stream, sometimes there is a post-produced video production going on that Round Network needs to set up and make sure shots look good. So there's all these different challenges depending on the type of tournament. Um, but yeah, ultimately, like I don't know. Like, why would you want tournaments to go long? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't really understand it personally, and yeah, I think anybody that likes a good after party would say, why don't we just start the after party earlier? Is my big note to most places, and yeah, if it means that you can get real food, also even better. Um, I, when I run tournaments, Jakob, I more and more I'm trying to have a pretty clear outline for when I expect matches to be getting played.
Mhm.
But like you mentioned, there's also like this structural component of Roundnet that's I think, whole separate conversation,
Oh
which is
yeah.
just that if you start the day and if you have a 30 team bracket, you could have anywhere between 10 and 15 games played in sequence for those 5 rounds of bracket play. If everything goes 2 sets, 3 sets, you don't know. You might have some extras as well. So just the fact that the way our sport is played, where we have all these things back to back, and you don't know how long each individual match is going to play out, just it's like understandably very difficult for a TD to actually time everything perfectly, even if you buffer things, um, even if players are really diligent and play on time. Um, but yeah, if someone's chasing their one ace ball afterwards in the final, I would say that there's got to be somebody else picking up the ball for them. Like that's kind of crazy to me. I was picking up balls at a tournament this past weekend locally, where it's just like, yeah, I want to wrap up the tournament sooner. So it's gonna suck for me, but I'm gonna go run around and pick up balls for these players so they don't have to pick up balls, and then they always can just keep playing, playing, playing. It's again one thing at a time. But yeah, there's I don't know what your question was anymore. Just making the tournament shorter, right?
No,
There's
you've
so
answered
there's
it.
there's so many
You've
things to make the tournament
answered
shorter,
it.
Jakob. So many things, and we don't do almost any of them. I think we do the opposite of them usually. We don't read the emails. We don't show up on time. We don't start on time. We take long bathroom breaks for no reason. Yeah, I think that's actually this is crazy. This is gonna be a hot take. I think Europe is far and away worse at this than Americans, and Americans are really bad at this. Is running tournaments fast.
The Americans are worse than Europeans.
That's not been my experience.
No, there was a thing I'm not sure I understood. Or Europeans
Oh,
are.
sorry. Americans run tournaments faster than
Oh
Europeans,
yeah.
and
Okay. Yeah.
Americans are really slow.
In a lot of ways. Not just kidding. But but pun intended. Maybe a little bit. I mean, we've just uncovered the perfect slogan. You want to start the after party, like start the party earlier.
That's
Like
yeah.
start a party early and get to
I
help
got to the
people.
Toulouse after party at like 11:45.
Yeah. And then you get to leave, and by midnight you already had you have great time. You had 4 hours of great time, and then you can go to bed and actually
Yeah,
play the next morning and not sleep
yeah.
2 hours.
You have to talk to someone much different about like the physiological impact of the long tournament days, but yeah. Um, you,
That is probably not our area of expertise. I mean,
no,
I
that's okay.
had ATNs
Mhm.
from
Yeah, of course.
Roundnet Physio here, and we
Yeah.
talked about it. Unfortunately, in German, or fortunately, depends how you look at it.
Just get the
Is
captions auto translate.
Yeah, it's getting here. Spotify is actually translating apparently the most known podcasts like Joe Rogan, Diary of CEO into different languages with AI, and it's I listen to some of them. It's crazy and it's really really good. But that is our topic is so interesting, but I don't want to get there right now.
Mhm.
Just to finish off this idea, in Europe, I play tournaments in the US, play the highest level of tournaments in the US and in Europe. It's just we have a lot of different cultures, so people also like function differently. So it's a cultural thing. But till recently, and it's something I struggled with when I was playing 2020, 21, most of them take it as fun and not to be stressed. So
Yeah,
you are a
which is
TD,
okay. Like it's a fun time and you're relaxing.
which is absolutely okay, but not on the highest tournament.
Yeah,
Not
not if there's a pro not if there's a pro division, right? If there's a pro division, like if you want to be treated like a pro, you have to also act like a pro.
exactly. And it starts again with just wearing same jerseys. And
Mhm.
still a lot of people struggle with that on the highest level. I understand mashup teams, but there are so many different communities. I mean, hell, like just text me. I'll sell you future round jerseys. I don't care. Just have matching jerseys, people.
Huge plug.
So
Huge.
if someone comes from the outside, we don't look like a bunch of people like running around on a turf field, but actually look like athletes and we
Yeah.
look like sport. And these are again like one of like the small things that are not expensive actually makes you look way better. Photographs like you more if you're wearing matching jerseys, right? You're reinvesting money in the community when you buy a London Roundnet or Munich Roundnet jersey, right? And you look better usually, right? And it's just little things, and it just I'm dazzled. Like, why isn't this so obvious? Why are not people thinking?
Mhm.
Because most of them, like I was thinking about this question a lot. Is okay, it's fun and it's okay. But now, if we don't want it to be fun, but that is the bigger question. What is your perception? Do actually people want it, like truly, to be a sport, or be something for a certain amount of people, like small community, and just have a good time? How is it in the US, or from your observation?
This is a great topic, and I want to talk to a lot more people about it. Um,
We can
but
start. You
yeah,
can start.
I think it's more fun. I think it's more fun. I think it can be more fun. Like I think people say it's like a trade off of like I don't want to be so serious. I just want to have fun. But I think if you like are a little more serious about the right things, like showing up on time, like you'll have more fun. Like if you have a party and you show up like an hour late to the party, like you missed an hour of the fun.
Hmm.
If you want to, play really slow at Roundnet tournaments and then have your after party start 2 hours later. Like that's less fun time doing after party, and that's also probably like a slog of a day where you're just like warming up, and yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to attack this, but yeah, I don't think being serious is at the cost of fun. And if anything, I think sometimes for people who are doing like the hard work of like volunteering and working on things, when people don't take what they're doing seriously, it definitely like makes things less fun for others, right?
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
there's a lot of angles to the fun of RoundNet, and yeah, a lot of times we get stuck in like just one particular idea of fun or one particular idea of how RoundNet should be. But there's probably a lot of good ideas out there that we haven't even got to try yet because we're too busy just goofing off.
What are some of the areas of fun? Let's explore that a little bit. I would be very curious, like
Oh man,
of your
I didn't say
perspective.
I was fun.
A what?
I was like, I didn't say I was fun, so this is gonna be hard for me. So I have to
No,
come up with fun things that we could do.
or like things or areas that can be more fun for people. Maybe extreme example, a halftime show. Like I know Americans are very good at it. I mean, Super Bowl, like the halftime show, sometimes is bigger
Mm,
than the event or the game itself, or is more talked about, especially with non like football fans, American football fans. But there are a lot of different types of fun. Some people love, for me, it's fun when I'm winning, or it was for a long time. I learned the hard way, then it's not the only way of fun to a tournament. You can have fun of improvement or fun just like joking around, making new friends. But it comes down like to your expectations. So if we ask, maybe we should do a poll on Instagram. Like, what kind of fun can you have at a roundnet tournament? Or what we haven't really exploited yet, you know?
hmm. Yeah, for me, I definitely just love talking to people about like lots of different like small community building things. That's been one of my favorite things to ask people about. So I'm just always learning and getting like good conversation and about like community and growing the sport, because that's the like if we get all those little pieces right, then the bigger picture will just come together more. So that's what I like to do. But there's lots of other things I like to do too at tournaments. I like observing. Observing's pretty fun usually. It's like a challenge. You gotta focus. And I never win or lose. It's great.
Actually, I believe you observers or referees, they win when no one talks about them. That's how
Sure.
I
Yeah,
was
that's
brought
that's
up.
that's a fair way of putting it.
Referee. That's the biggest compliment if they're like, "Oh, what? They were referees,
Yeah.
or you were there." They're like,
Mhm,
"Wow!" But it's not the you are not on the like on the cover page of a sports magazine. Oh,
mhm,
referee! They almost never, unless you may make big mistake or is perceived a
mm,
mistake. Uh, I want to elaborate on something that you said, which I find so important, especially nowadays in a very disconnected world, that I noticed also while building Munich Roundnet community. We're actually, fun fact, I can silently brag about this because I'm one of the people started it. There was a video recently, and Chris Rudy even mentioned it on the podcast, that in Munich, in one place in Europe, there are 43 nets going on simultaneously in one park. And it was our park in Munich, English and Garten. My friend Moritz did the count. I thought it was a brilliant idea because we had it many times. We had 80 people showing up to a practice in that park.
mm,
And one of the biggest, it's just crazy. It's also a huge park, to be fair. But a lot of people, they go and play around it to meet new people, because if you're a job or you're new in a city, then it's very difficult to make friends. A lot of people go online, also dating, the same thing. uh, a lot of couples, a lot of people start dating because of Roundnet or even got married. And not me, not yet. But, which is a paradox. But the thing is that talking to different people and making new friendships, it's so important, because during the week, usually like casual week, people are always talking to the same people all the time. And when you get to meet someone new, someone who's from completely different part of the world or Europe or whatever, it is just exciting. And sport is really not on the first level. It's not on the first place for a lot of people at tournaments. Therefore,
mm.
when we also talk about structure, I don't think we should have in lower divisions entire day tournaments. I actually don't think so. Like when it's talking
Yeah,
about
I've
intermediate.
already done this. Yeah, I totally agree.
You've already done that?
Yeah, yeah. I've wanted to do this more and more, and sometimes we haven't gotten that many teams, but yeah, this is. I might have to give credit to the folks in Connecticut who pioneered the Ethan Song tournament. But last year we definitely made a point of like start the tournament like 12 o'clock, finish at like 4 o'clock. That's it.
And most people they like that. I ran a under 21 European
But yeah,
Championship, Copenhagen Munich Roundnet last year, and then I ran a local tournament simultaneous on the same field because we were in red numbers. We didn't get any support from the European Roundnet Association at the time. Brookline helped us also financially, but the sets got delivered after the tournament, also not great.
oh man,
Yeah, there was then I had to obtain 16 sets from a lot of different people all across the city, which gave me like one day more of work. But luckily, Munich, we have a lot of people playing around it with Spikeball sets, and we had lunch break, and half of the intermediate teams, because it was intermediate tournament without a no-hit zone, they left. They were like, "Okay, we're going. Thank you. We had a great time." I'm like, "No, we have
yeah,
the break. What? There's a break?
yeah,
They're surprised. What? We should play more? That's crazy."
yeah.
Yeah, they were so
I mean, I
kind to
totally
us.
agree that
They were like, "Yes."
to get people started playing RoundNet, right? Like to say like, hey, so the first thing you're gonna do, right? Play for like 8 hours or 12 hours, right, in Europe on a Saturday. It's like just not a reasonable like. How are you gonna get more people playing this sport if that's like the jump they have to take? So yeah, I actually forget that like we've run a lot of tournaments near the DC area too that are like very like simple, very casual. Like we usually try to finish them in like 3 to 4 hours as well. And then maybe we'll play some pickup afterwards too, or we'll just hang out and play games. But yeah, trying to make it like as easy as possible for new people to come play and just get exposed around it is like super underrated in most parts of the world. There are definitely people who are doing well, but yeah, having shorter events just seems like intuitive to me, right? Like
But
if you love round and you want to play for 12 hours, like you have to build up to that.
exactly, and it's good if you travel so far, then you want to be playing for longer. You want to play with bigger competition. But I think at
Well,
some
except
point,
you don't want to play your placement games.
don't get me started.
Okay, I won't get you started. I won't get you started. But yes, okay. Sorry to
No,
interrupt you. Yeah,
no.
if you travel more, you generally want to play more, kind of.
Yeah, and this was what was startling to me when I played in the US because I was like so excited to qualify for Premier and then play Premier tournaments. They're like, "Yeah, we're not playing." Like consolation is like, "What? We just had like a couple of games in the pool play," and I'm like, "I want to play. You're all like grade level, whatever. Like, let's do it." And the US days are not doing it that much because
Mhm.
it's about the points. In Europe, I think last year we're doing it much more. Now this year, so European Roundnet Association changed the rules that you only play one bracket, like one constellation game, which personally I don't think I don't like it because those are exactly the type of close games where you can learn a lot, where you play against people from different countries. I don't know the reasoning behind that. They say time, but you have the field anyway, or more crowd, but then just make the tournament shorter, right? It's actually very simple in theory.
There's a lot of levers. I think it's really complicated. You also want to have usually the people that are losing these games are going to be observers too. So there's infinite trade offs, unfortunately. So yeah, I not knowing all the details, I wouldn't say it's like the best or worst, but there's that it's a choice, and hopefully they measure it and then they can decide if it was a good thing or a bad thing for the feedback. That's all
That
you can
is
really do.
that is true. I give you that.
Mhm.
That of course, like the constellation people, also a lot of times in the highest divisions, they are observing
Mhm.
and helping. Yeah, it's unfortunate in this case. We need to do a lot of trade offs because the resources are limited,
Yeah.
and
It's the
I
same.
just
We're talking about the one same thing, right? We're talking about how there's not that much money in RoundNet, and that we want to do some of these things to get more money into RoundNet. But the people that are playing RoundNet need to be part of that solution. So that way, the people that want to play placement games can actually have observers for their placement games, and there's observers for the championship games at the same time. Like we want all the things. We need all the resources. So we just have to build towards it.
how would you build those resources? I mean, you are one of the leaders in USA Roundnet, and when we say USA Roundnet, that is, in my view,
The national
like
governing body.
national governing body, obviously, but it's like the NBA. US is the home of Roundnet. You have the best players, your world champions. and everything. So I guess it could be maybe potentially easier to attract sponsors, or what is actually the situation about like of USA around it?
Oh, okay, sure, yeah. I mean, separate from getting more resources, I think it would just be tournaments should just cost more, right? If players want to get like all the things. But what's going on in the US? I mean, I think the US is in a transition period, and I don't know how long it's going to take. But we had this sport here the first because it was invented here, and the formalization of USA Roundnet as like a national governing body is a really interesting thing that I couldn't study because I'm not an expert. But everybody that cares about Roundnet, we're trying to get everybody together the same way that honestly is probably the best model. Roundnet Germany has done that of saying, hey, we are governing the sport at a national level. We care about everything from the grassroots all the way up. USA Roundnet feels the same way, grassroots all the way up to the top players. So yes, we care about the world championship, but we also care about growing every local community that we can support. And so the game that we're playing is trying to support as many of those people as best we can with, of course, like very little resources because we don't sell plastic circles. So we can't just dole out thousands and thousands or millions of dollars to growing around it. We have to kind of educate everybody about the need for a national governing body, that it's an important thing to unify and grow the sport together. And then we also need to then understand that we, the players, we, the community, have to put the resources in, the funds in, the membership fees in to then fuel some of this work, some of these initiatives, some of these costs that are going to then get more people playing the sport, grow more connections, community involvement, general like just high utility things like playing around. It's fun. So supporting all those fun experiences. And then of course, getting more people playing Roundnet, growing the base of players that are in the US and building up the membership base so that not only can we serve the members better, but also we can then do things like get sponsors that want to partner with organizations that have more than just a couple thousand members, but work towards having tens of thousands of members. And all of a sudden, USA Roundnet can not only do things that maybe are like flashy, like put out just big sponsorships for players, but also do things like hire really capable people to do all the hard work that goes into running a national governing body, where national governing bodies across the U.S. that are more established have full-time staff. They have people that are managing all these things and they can work on it full time versus right now in the US, I'm one of a couple of people who works really hard on it, but we also have other obligations and we have to pay rent and pay for school or whatever we're working on. So that's the short version of USA on it, and I'm happy to go into depth on any particular thing you're curious about.
You said it's maybe I misunderstood. That there are some people who are getting paid full time for their work. Did you mean in Roundnet or in general?
No, for like other national governing bodies, like other
I don't know.
sports
Okay,
organizations.
other
Yeah.
sports.
So whether
Yeah,
it's like basketball or football, soccer, like ultimate, USA pickleball is a big one.
yeah.
Yeah, there's one really fun fact. Just to echo, this is a quote from somebody who works in pickleball. Is that there are about as many members of USA Roundnet last year um, that there are ambassadors for pickleball, like volunteer ambassadors for the sport that go out and advocate for court space, advocate for the sport being more legitimized. And so, what I always say to people at like this stage of how we're growing in the U.S. and also abroad too, for the most part, is if you play around and if you care about it, like you need to not only like grow as a player, but you need to like be an ambassador for just like sharing the sport and like bringing people into it and making it a thing that people are aware of and support instead of just expecting that it's going to happen. Like
Mhm.
Roundnet's not happening. Like it doesn't just happen. It's built by people, by real people, and the more people that are part of that, the faster and the farther we'll get.
Yes, I mean pickleball is a big one. How many members does USA Roundnet have right
So
now?
we had about 2,000 members in the past couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's I think what Germany has like in the range of like 4 or 5,000 members.
No, I mean we would have to ask them for the exact numbers. I just
Okay.
know that as a club, it is around 1,000, maybe even below 1,000, that are registered in the official NGB. So Germany
Okay.
was a little bit different. So they started the NGB, which is a sports club officially.
Mhm.
So around Germany, IFA eingetragene Verein, so registered club. And then clubs can become members and also players, like individual ones as well.
Right.
So
Yeah.
those are paying yearly fees. And this is around 1,000. But in the player zone, I think it's probably around 5, 6,000 people who have played at least one tournament and are
Sure.
registered there, but they are not paying for it. Not
Got it.
yet.
Yeah. That's
And around,
understandable.
and around Germany is just starting with, I think it's 18 or 24 euros a year for the membership,
Mhm.
which is 2 euros a month, which is
Yeah.
nothing, right? But it's the little thing, which is already for a lot of people like a lot. Even me, including myself, I'm guilty. In 21, I was like, I'm not gonna play a lot of German tournaments. They rolled it out in the summer. I was in the US. I played like one tournament in the winter. I was like, I'm not gonna become a member because it's mathematically it's not worth for me. But I was
Sure,
not thinking
sure. Yeah,
large.
so that's been the big challenge, I think. I mean, probably anywhere, right? Whether it's signing up for a tournament or being a member of your national governing bodies, it's like, oh, what do I get out of this? And it's like,
Yeah,
oh, do I get more money back somehow? And of course, for like
yeah.
for the USA Roundnet, like we basically work on ways to like give that value back, like in just financial ways. But what's very funny again, we talked about what's the value of like playing a tournament. It's like trying to communicate what is the value of being part of your national governing body, what's the value of having representation, what's the value of being part of building this thing. Those you can't quantify those are some of them are priceless maybe, but yeah, trying to build the membership program in a way that it also serves um, people just at like a core level of just like transactionally you get more than you give as a member, is something we definitely like work on also. So I can't remember all like the factoids for like 2024 this year, but I think we're definitely like giving a lot more value back to players than we are getting from the membership. And so that's like the same challenge financially of like how do you grow something if you're trying to give it all back to your members, um, in this culture of I just want like prize money, or I just want like these things given to me. But ultimately, like we all need to be part of something a little bit bigger so that we can snowball into getting more acceptance and more like integration into the U.S. Olympic Paralympic Committee is one big target goal for USA Roundnet as far as tracking towards like Olympic aspirations in the long term and other things like that. So I always joke that like I don't know all the things because I haven't had to figure out all the problems yet. And so for the average player, like I totally understand that there's like a lot of details that are confusing. And I mean, honestly, if you just like don't sweat it, but like there's a lot of people that have worked really hard on this, and there's a lot of people that are continuing to work really hard on this. And man, like so much good stuff has come out of USA Roundnet, and again, it's been like all on volunteers' backs. So continuing to support that is I think like one of the most important things that American Roundnet players can be doing.
It is difficult though. I mean, when I now think about it, I mean, I said it out loud in 2021 that I, who literally changed his life or adapt his life to playing around and being able to compete for Germany
Mhm.
national level at Worlds, I was not willing to pay 18 euros for like 4 months because I was like,
Sure.
okay, if I get 3 euros discount on that tournament, it's still like I'm just gonna get 12 euros paying.
Exactly, and that's like it's like that's the average player in the Roundnet community, right? Is like, oh, like maybe I don't have like a big job because I'm a student, or I have like this
But not
transitionary situation. And so it's like, oh, if we can't spend that much on Roundnet, then Roundnet can't really grow because as players, like we are probably going to be the biggest engine to growing Roundnet over the long term.
I would even highlight not even average player. Like I was fanatic.
Sure.
Like
Yeah. You
I
sorry,
was
sorry,
fanatic.
not the
I
average player,
was
but
not.
the normal like dedicated like competitive player, like the typical competitive player is like excited about Roundnet, but like at the same time there's a disconnect where you're excited about it, but like you don't want to show up for it and actually like contribute just monetarily, like just like to be part of like this broader thing. And that's not a knock on you. That's like I think just an observation of like where the Roundnet I think discourse
Yeah.
is like, oh yeah, like back to Spikeball. Spikeball's just going to spend all this money on Roundnet and we'll be fine, right? Why should I spend 18 euros?
I'm just astonished that I I had that mindset, and I was literally like one of the 50 guys probably in all Germany who like dedicate so much time. And
Mhm.
then what can we expect from someone who's just doing it for fun or goes for like two tournaments a year, right?
Yeah,
So I believe what we're doing right now is next step to just making things more aware. If
yeah,
we really want this to be a sport, and both us and like hundreds of other people invested so many months, years of their lives and work into growing this, and it's difficult. Like I didn't want to spend 18 euros. I mean, that is crazy. Yeah, and I
yeah.
mean, and German was pretty pissed at that as well. They were expecting me to be one of the first members. I was like, nah, I'm good.
Oh
But
man.
I'll be paying for probably the rest of my life now, unless it's go like super crazy. But yeah, I mean, it changes with experience. Then I got a serious job, so obviously you can afford that more.
Sure.
It's definitely a factor. But the same goes for EURA, as we call, like, European Roundnet Association. It's
Mm.
10 years membership. And I remember when I was in the board, I was like, okay, there are Fuengo fees. They're like less than $1 or €1 plus some percentage. I was like, let's pass that on the register. No, no, we cannot. We can. I was like, why not? No, it's 10 years is already a lot for people. I was like, yeah, or if it's 10 or 11, it doesn't really matter. But if we get 500 people, and I then did the math, and for each €10, we paid almost 25% like fees. For because of the like how the math worked. I was like,
Oh,
wait a second.
the fee was paid by
You're right.
EURA instead of by the
Yeah.
players. Yeah.
And
Um,
like little
Again,
little things, but then
yeah,
suddenly it all sums up. And suddenly from 10
sure.
euros, like, okay, we have 1,000 that we could have used somewhere else if the governing body is willing to spend money, actually, but it's a different
Or
conversation.
charge money, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
I think like you said though, and earlier in this conversation of like, oh, make money doing Roundnet or charge money for a Roundnet thing. But yeah, at the end of the day, if people aren't paid or if entities aren't paid to do the work for people, then we can never be surprised when it stops working, right? Like when Reuven quits doing photography and traveling for it, if Tops is going to stop streaming, it's like we can't be surprised. You have no right to be surprised if you didn't like actually support them or like advocate for their having financial security. And I can speak to also like my own experience of just like not doing as many of the things that I have always been doing is like I used to fly around the US and just like stream big tournaments on Twitch and
I
put
know.
VODs on YouTube. And people listening to this probably don't even remember that I used to do that because I stopped doing it so long ago. But I stopped because it was a thing that I really enjoyed. And then I didn't enjoy it as much. And I wasn't going to keep doing it because I was just spending my own money doing it. It was a hobby, right? So
Mm.
if people who are contributing to the sport are contributing as a hobby, not playing, but are contributing to whatever facets of the sport as a hobby, then you can't be surprised when they just pick up another hobby instead. So yeah, having someone able to take over and have like a budget to actually support that work is that's what I'm spending a lot of my energy doing now is like for my hobbies, I'm like, what if I stop doing this? What if I stop wanting to run tournaments? I should probably pay myself so that I can pay someone else. So that's been a very humbling time is realizing not that I'm like making a mistake not paying myself, but that it's not a sustainable behavior. So thinking about how I can act
Yeah.
sustainably, even if I enjoy it, that I should still pay myself a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. As Napoleon Hill says in the best-selling book, you need to pay yourself first, 10%
Sure.
of the
Yeah.
income. I truly believe that. And that I was going through the same thought process because I started playing because of the competition. I loved being good at stuff and improving and discovering new things and grinding and making new memories and winning. But then once people got better as well, or I made a lot of people much better because I coached them and they eventually got better than
Yeah.
me, or like coming closer to me is still not better. I was like, sheesh, like I'm training them and I'm not really improving, but they are, which is great. But I also need to work on my game. And then if they stop even appreciating that or you don't get any credit, like, okay, like why am I doing this? And I had this conversation with myself as well, like, okay, how much time am I willing to spend on Roundnet or invest in? I mean, Myrica is amazing and I love it and I'll keep doing it. I hope so. But I had bigger plans. But I was like, okay, I could run a training camp every month if I wanted somewhere in Europe. But am I actually going to be losing money? Am I going to spend so much time giving my expertise for
Yeah.
something that Spikeball says more sets than, which is great. Yeah, but do I at least have a link if I sell the sets?
Sure.
Right? Like little things. Okay, I don't know. I was not surprised that Top stopped or Ruben stopped. I mean, not only I know them personally, but it feels like we are taking steps back. Like the European Run Association stream is obviously worse than it was with Tops. Whereas each year we like things to improve, but you cannot improve if you don't invest.
I
You're
think
just
I think we actually need to take a step back though before we take steps forward because
okay.
right now we actually in a space I think where Spikeball has spent the most money on Roundnet far and away by like a large margin for a long time, and now they've like spent less, and so now people are feeling like the effects of is like are things worse or there's less funding for it. But if we can appreciate that things are maybe getting worse, then we can understand the need to actually build the systems and put in the funds ourselves as people, as individuals, to actually make the sport and all of the people and systems around it better. So if the stream is worse because it's fewer resources, right? Like it's worse. It's not worse because like it's worse. It's worse because there's less resources for
Yeah.
a stream, or there's less resources for an event, or there's less resources for prize money. So the prizes are lower in a tournament, wherever this may be in the world. And if you want them to be bigger or better or higher quality in whatever fashion, then the money has to come from somewhere. Like it doesn't come from nowhere. For a very long time, Spikeball has spent a lot of money on these things, and I think it's been invisible to a lot of players. And now Spikeball is spending a lot but less, and now it's becoming visible to players. And so I think that's actually been a really cool thing, is seeing more people maybe become aware that there are these problems that maybe you or I have been familiar with, but couldn't really like solve them. It's not like I like have been working to, you know, I'm not doing anything differently. But yeah, now that there's more people that are aware that there's these challenges, instead of getting like disgruntled or like disillusioned, I'm like totally have like lots of like concerns, but there's also like opportunity to just improve and make things better, by not just like throwing money at the problem, but by like understanding that it's our problem as a community to solve, and it's not like a company is just going to spend money on a problem that we have. So
Mhm.
that's that's one perspective. Maybe it's a little optimistic.
I agree. Whereas there's also a side argument because, for example, in Europe, Spikeball hasn't been really present. There's also what Chris admitted in the interview, like they have not really been supporting European roundnet scene as Europeans felt or felt entitled to. That's a different conversation. But there is money in the European Tour Series, for example, and
Mhm.
I know the money is not being spent because it goes to the club, to the TD. I don't know. I know I've done the math for the ETS 2023 from the Eura events that Eura was running or covering. The income was 70,000 euros, for example, from
That's
six
great.
or seven events. Was the income, not profit, income, right? Plus, I think already in it was 10,000 just from registrations, from memberships. But they have not really spent any money on improving. Like Tops was getting financed by Brookline, not by Eura, like the stream. So there is actually the money. If the head association or if Eura says to next host, okay, so this is the budget, you're expecting this, so we have a business plan. And because you as a host, if you want to host this event, you need to spend 10% on marketing in the local scene, for example. And then you need to spend X amount of money on stream. Tops is not possible. Okay, we need to find someone else. We need to have the equipment and we need to pay commentators or someone to be there sitting in the cold or in the heat, right? So this is, for me, these are such logical things when the money is there, because there is money. Everyone who's run a tournament in Europe or a European tournament knows that you can make money. Not a lot, but you can make money, right? But it's just, okay, where is my initiative as a tournament director? Why should I spend money on observers or stream when personally I don't really have anything from it? I'm just going to make less money. I can help improve the sport, which I want to,
Sure.
but then what is there if I don't even see where are we going? Where is the vision? And I believe the vision needs to come from above. And I don't mean God, but I mean IRF, Eura, Asian Federation.
Sure.
And this is something that I feel is missing. Leadership. We have a leadership issue in my view.
Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of things there, so I can't really address the entirety of that perspective. So I'll let
Just
folks comment. Yeah, I think like most of the problems, like again, if you're upset with like the people that are in leadership, like wherever like the organization or group is, whether it's Roundnet or otherwise, like the question is always fair to ask is like, what are they putting into that role and what are they getting out of it? So I know for my part, like I do the leadership things I do because I think I can do an okay job at them, and I learn as I go, and I can bring my experience with me to like have perspective. But I also know I make mistakes, and yeah, I would love more help working on all the things I work on. But there's no budget for me, and there's no budget to really pay other people to do that. So that's my experience. For other experiences, I can't speak for them. But yeah, if we want the sport to be better, I think one of the more important things, like you said, is it to be like kind of running through these like collective organizations, where like the IRF should set the tone and should go down from there through like continental and national governing bodies, as opposed to, for a long time, like Spikeball was just like doing what they did, and there weren't really any of these federations or international
Yeah.
federations, and that was just like how the sport was run. And like, it was nice that Spikeball was like doing sport development things, but like, well, if we did that for 50 years, that'd be crazy for a company to just be like setting direction for a sport. Like we wouldn't really be in a more legitimized spot. So yeah, I agree. Having those like forums and opportunities to share feedback and bring questions, and then take action from all those inputs is, I think, super important. And that's, I know we talked a little bit about USA Roundnet before. That's actually, I think, one of the hardest parts of my job is we talked about how players maybe don't read when the tournament starts or where
Mhm.
their directions are. I spend a lot of my time trying to get as many perspectives from as many of those players and people in the community as possible, so that when I do my work volunteering, it's
Mhm.
not just like what I think is good for Roundnet, but it's what as many different people thought would be a good idea for Roundnet. So that it's like, again, by the community for the community. But Ben just does like the work, or I don't do all the work. Lots of people else do the work, but when I do my work, that's how I approach a lot of my mindset for it. Um, and I don't know how much every other group does that, or different functions for like getting people involved, but I continue to actually think about how to be working smarter in getting input from people, so that I don't
Mhm.
have to try to just like chase people down for feedback or ideas, or just like reading like random messages in social media, but instead having more formal processes to bring ideas in. Like, I know one thing I worked on recently was like the IRF rules committee and trying to make updates, and we just worked through the IRF to put out like a form that anybody in the world could submit an idea. Some people
Mhm.
put in pretty good ideas, and some people put in ideas that were wild. They were like, "We should make this a rule," and I was like, "I love your passion for Roundnet. We should try it." And yeah, the ones that maybe these should never be tried.
What are some of the wild ideas? Now I need to know. Please don't do any
I
names,
think
but
I think like I think one idea was just like we should serve from like 10 feet or something. Like, so some ideas are just like we need to test this. Like, the world round it, like IRF should never change a rule that dramatically, I think, without like some serious testing, right? As
oh,
opposed to
yeah.
like, hey, we need to like fix this, like how hinders work and make hinders like more understandable. Like, that's like a good idea, but yeah, like saying we should just like completely change how the sport looks without like any testing or like rationale, is like not the best way to go. But it's also good to get those ideas in, because then we can understand, okay, these are these ideas that the community has.
Mhm.
Let's go out and explore them. Let's go test these. Let's go mess around and see if we can push the sport forward, because the sport is still really young and small.
Exactly, and that's what we need to realize. If we've been alive for a couple of years, like if we say 10, that's already way too
Mhm.
long, like way
Like
too
you
much.
mentioned, it's like the entitlement. Like we've got our expectations all out of whack. We it's still
Yeah,
very very early. Unfortunately, right? Like, if you're listening to this, you're probably not going to play round it in the Olympics. I'm sorry.
yeah. No, that is very true. I mean, when Los Angeles in 4 years we can be at the Olympics, it's like no, we can't.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just unreal. It's great to have big goals and dreams.
Yeah.
Like I'm all
I
about
think
it.
you have to have both still, right? You have to have the
Yeah,
expectations. Again, it's a lot of things I've said today, I think, are like, you have to have two halves of it. You have to like be excited about round it, but you also have to like maybe contribute. You have to want round it to be really big, but also know it's not that big yet. It's still pretty small.
maybe one of the last questions, Ben, before we wrap up,
Sure.
because I want to be very respectful to your time, is how do you go about finding volunteers for USA Roundnet? Because that
Great
is the big
question.
question. I believe, to give a little bit of context, that there are a lot of people who have great expertise who are willing to help, but they are just not being addressed the proper way, or
In
they
the
are
US or everywhere?
they don't have the direction. So how do
Yeah.
you approach it?
That's a great question. So if you're an American, I guess we take international volunteers, but you should just go work on your other NGBs. Um, and
Don't
uh,
take
and
our
yeah,
chance. Don't take our
but
chance.
for the US, we like pretty regularly are sending out emails to all of our members and also past members. We send out a newsletter, just what the USA organization's up to, what's happening in the US, some sanctioned events that
I
are
know.
coming up, some of the national series, and we also we just plug like, hey, if you want to get involved, here's some opportunities. And we like have a form that we pretty regularly share, and um, there's always like specific needs that we have, but then we also have a general just interest if you're wanting to bring your skills and come support and work on the team. We are happy to have you. And one of the biggest things I know we talked about end to end on this call has also been about money and finances. Is some of that work is, I think, some of the most important stuff for building the growth of the sport in the U.S. And so trying to find ways to budget and finance for, even if it's not a lot of money, just having stipends and ways to pay people that are volunteering and working on lots of different parts of the USA Roundnet is also a thing that we're working really hard on. So yeah, there's we try to make it very accessible. We try to share that Google form all the time that you can come work on USA Roundnet. Anybody come work on it. And usually, what's funny is I don't know if you've had this experience in Europe or in Germany, but usually when people have critical things to say about USA Roundnet, I usually try to like, yeah, like come help us fix that. That sounds good. Like no part of me will ever pretend that like the work we've done is perfect, but I know we work really hard and we definitely want to do more and better for our community in the US. So we always welcome people and their feedback to, if you want to come help us fix it, like it'll get fixed faster with your help. So yeah, we've actually picked up a lot of volunteers this spring because of some of that feedback. So that's actually been a really good tactic for us, is we try to just get into the news cycle. People are talking about us, people are saying we're doing good stuff, people are saying we're making mistakes, and then we recruit people to help us fix the mistakes. So I don't mind that strategy.
That is actually, that's a very healthy strategy. I like it a lot, because what I wanted to elaborate on, because there's one part like to get volunteers for Roundnet Germany, for Europe, for Roundnet Austria, or other NGBs, and I see those applications when I can understand them in one of the languages that I speak, but also with sponsorship from teams. And this is what baffles me. And sure, there was a Facebook discussion, I think, a couple of years ago. Yes, this is how old I am, that I still used to use Facebook. But was that teams just post on Instagram, we're looking for sponsors. Tier one, two, three. This is the amount of money, blah, blah. And then they stop and they complain about not having sponsors in sport. No one's interested. And then we have player, and I'll give him a shout out because he's an amazing guy and very smart man. Mark Elburn, for example, who also was on Team Spikeball, but before that, he was sponsored because he proactively reached out to a lot of companies many times. So did I when I was with Benny Bacher, the first European like sponsored athlete, round athlete ever, because I reached out to a lot of companies. And then I had my pitch. I had my pitch ready, and I refined the pitch, and I thought about things in advance. And when I see it's like, come work with us, yeah, I'll make up a history like, I don't know, Scandinavian Roundnet Association or the Polar Bear Association, probably better. And
Yeah.
so come work with us. We're looking for volunteers. Anything great. Okay. And that's it. But for me, that's a terrible hiring technique. Like something that I already mentioned at the one General Assemblies, just offer people letters of recommendation or internship. Because on the CV, the outside world does not need to know that the USA Round is example 5 people, or around in Germany is actually 30 people. But if you work for international governing body and you made an internship of
Yeah.
3 months, and these were the tasks that you had, like project management, you are now very credible in Slack or Asana, whatever. You play with this
Mhm.
project market go. That's great for resume. And
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
differentiates you so much. So also the organization have to, like, in my view, okay, come and have interview. This is what we give you, what we offer you. It's like one
Yeah.
first step. What I would.
I think in the US there's various things, but in the US we've done everything from the range of recommendation letters, college credit, and I think volunteer hours for some like organizations. You need like volunteer hours because it's a nonprofit. So
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of things you can get out of USA on aside from the experience or the resume bullets, or just like, feeling like you're contributing to something that's that you care about. We've given a lot of, I think, like those transactional, like
Okay.
concrete impacts to some folks too. So yeah, that's a good point. I should make sure to market on that more often. I don't know. Not that I'm like super worried, but I don't want to be like, hey, like you should come work here because it's great on your resume. Like we don't know that yet because US Roundnet's really small and new, so it's hard.
But, but
We don't know, but
but this
it
is
could
the
be a
thing.
very good talking point for people in their resume at least.
But this is the thing, and I know, and let's say other 500 people in this world won't know that it's small. But the outside companies, they do not. And I don't think it's
Hmm.
lying. Faking, I mean, maybe
No,
like,
no, it is the national governing body for a sport, and that's actually one small thing I want to say on that is like how you represent Roundnet outside of the community and inside the community, I think should be two different ways. Like we should be very like
oh, yeah.
we should have lots of constructive criticism and thoughtful debate when we're internal. But sometimes the way that people talk about Roundnet facing outside, trying to get the world excited about Roundnet, sometimes I think we talk to each other about that. Where I'm like, Jakob, yo, I'm insane at Roundnet. I'm so good. And you're like, Ben, please, we lost all these tournaments to lose. And I'm like, you're right. But if I'm talking to random people that don't know about Roundnet, and I'm like, hey, like I'm actually pretty good at this. They're like, no way, that's crazy. Like I think those are two different settings, and I think one's more appropriate to like hype yourself or hype up Roundnet and say Roundnet's this big thing. I work for USA Roundnet. It's really cool. For you, that's cool. Like thanks for volunteering, Ben. But for the world, like you're saying, how we talk about Roundnet outside of it, I think it's important that we don't take how we talk about Roundnet outside of it and bring it inside, because then we start to just get confused about what is actually going on.
Yes, I hear this a lot, or I witness a lot when people are talking to new, like let's say Roundnet players, seasoned Roundnet players, and they get approached from the street or whatever from someone who's not in our bubble, because we are in the bubble. You can definitely argue with that, but I don't think you'll change my mind. We are in a big
Oh,
bubble.
it's a bubble. It's a bubble.
It's a bubble, but like everything in life. But and they say, yeah, I mean it's okay, but the sport sucks and the game is broken, to someone who doesn't even know what a serving line is or don't know the rules. And then I try to take them aside. They're like, "Oh, it's actually so much fun." And I play with them, and then we play like just poop the serves on and have like great rallies, and they're having all the best fun.
Mhm.
I don't think people need to know that on the highest level, it's not very fun to watch. I think we should tell people it's actually so much fun. Come and watch, like the videos, go to tournaments or whatever, and see for yourself, meet new people. That for 200 people in the world, it's not so much fun because they serve all day, and it's about
Well,
like, I mean, it's also
that's
fun.
much longer conversation to be had. But yeah, the general sentiment of like talking about round in an excited way outside of it and then inside of it, like I'm not gonna pretend to like people that know round it, hey, like the game is actually at a perfect equilibrium right now and it's set.
It's not.
And also it's very economically viable right now.
Yeah. But
Mhm.
what I want to say, this is, for example, something that
Yeah.
I've encountered a lot as I started playing. Like when I play, I'm one way, and when I'm in a private, I'm a second, like different way. We played a
Mhm.
tournament together, but it was already like towards the end when I really did not care. It was more about fun and like having a good time. But before that, it was not. It was about winning mostly. And a lot of people have very difficult times also separating the playing side with the personal one, or in business, the professional side with the private one, right? And I
Yeah.
think this is another dichotomy that we have is okay, inside of Roundnet and outside. How do I present the sport to the outside and the inside, which is maybe even a skill to be learned, right? I loved, I don't know who said it, but we also used to do this as well. In Munich, when we were playing in the park, and people would have bystanders all the time. And we'd say, okay, showtime Roundnet. And okay, let's do some body blocks, some twinners, and we are not going to count the scores. But we really want to excite the people who are watching, like,
Mhm.
wow, this is so cool. Because it's very frustrating when people are watching and just do double fault after double fault, right? Because that does not look like so much fun. And then you have ideas or people, I don't want to be fake, I don't want to play rally ball. So okay, but it's not probably the best for round. We know how the
Well,
ESPN was.
it's yeah, it's just one way. It's one way to grow the sport, right? Is like marketing the sport and marketing the game a certain way. And I think people don't want to do that sometimes, and also people don't want to like bring someone new to pick up. Like there's lots of different ways that like
Oh yeah,
there's more than one way to grow around that, and so you don't have to do all of them. Just pick one or two, and and just do it well.
exactly.
Doesn't need to
Like
be flashy. It can honestly just being a friendly face pickup is like super simple.
yeah, and talk to people, make new friends. May like meet someone and it could be your boyfriend, girlfriend later on. Who knows? Just like you can hit it off. I used to tell a lot, like our guys in Munich and well, girls as well, that if we want to go, we have this casual, like this annual thing, which is called Pickup Tuesday. And I actually recommend every community in the whole world to do it. It doesn't have to be on Tuesday, it can be Wednesday, Thursday, it doesn't matter. But have one spot every week at the same hour and have your people go and play there at the beginning. And
Yeah,
it's going to
that's been
grow.
long studied. That's been long studied is the best way to go around that.
I've learned it from you, Tarana. I came up with it in Munich, but I've learned it from Taylor Sanford. I think I read it on his website. I was researching
Yeah.
the guy a lot because he
Yeah,
did amazing.
obviously, people would probably know, like, Stockholm Spike if you're in Europe, and if you're in the US, you might know, about the San Diego, crew that also plays. Um, yeah, there's
Exactly.
lots of groups that have this, like it's just, like, their habit, and they make it very welcoming and accessible and fun for everybody to join.
Exactly. But this was the point that we had a couple of times that we had then the advanced players or contender pro players, however you want to call them, and they would always play just with each other at these kind of events, like every
Mm,
Tuesday. When I told them, if you want to play just four of you, and like including me myself, like let's go, we'll play in a different spot, and then we can come here and hang out and play with new people. No, why? It's because like no, exactly. Speak up for people. There is a different goal. The goal is not for you to grind and just serve and like ace standard beginners, for example. But the goal is to like grow the community and introduce new people to the sport. There are ways, there are tournament
yeah.
styles that you can do that Morris has been doing, for example, with the crew in Munich. But this is the thing is like, I was like, yeah, just go somewhere else. No one really cares. But it just looks bad because if
Mm,
someone wants to enter and you're like, yeah, no, we're good, or you're too bad. I mean, you don't say it directly, and some people do, but like
mm.
you can like feel it. Then okay, this is maybe not so inclusive, and it's okay. I don't go to basketball and play with NBA players or like people in New York who are really good because I'm
Yeah.
not so good at basketball.
But
I
that's
know,
but that's also because there are millions of basketball players. I think we,
yeah,
like, don't remember that, is there are, like, there are maybe thousands and thousands of Roundnet players, so, um, yeah, if you're doing something to you just gotta be growing the sport. Yeah, sorry. I
yeah.
don't know, I agree with you. I don't have much more to add.
Yeah, in Europe, because it's so small and we have good public transport or trains for you American listeners, we have trains and train networks. They're actually really good,
Mm,
and they get you places, and you don't have to drive 45 minutes to like get to anywhere. Then we can grow. We are is much more people living in small areas. So that's I think one of the reasons why Germany, with the great structure, like grew so much or has been growing, and
mhm.
all around Europe. So it's going to be pretty exciting to see how this all figures out. Are you coming to Worlds, Ben? I mean, probably
It's on
rhetorical,
it's on the it's on the calendar, yeah. I haven't figured out what my trip looks like.
but
I
you're
also
going.
haven't figured I also I'm coming. I haven't figured out what I'm doing at Worlds. Hopefully not too many things. Last time it was very busy.
Yeah, I hope to commentate. Probably not coach, commentate. Maybe just have a good time. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But so I'm excited. Then at least, ladies, I'll see you end of August in
Yeah, the
person.
latest. Yep.
The very latest. Man, Ben,
You're not
this has
coming to the
been
US this year, right?
actually I don't plan on going. I mean, I was in Mexico in February for a while,
Yeah,
and scuba diving
you're right
and
before
enjoying this,
Mallorca. Yeah.
and then Mallorca, and now I'm living in a different country, working here, and I still tell the waitress gracias and like buenos dias instead of just speaking the local language because I'm
Yep.
still like Spanish in my head. But not US for me. It's an expensive country right now. I've been there 5 times in the past, I don't know, 5 6 years. Played a lot of Roundnet. I had strictly just trips for Roundnet there. And thank
Mhm.
you for hosting me, Yara and Dominic, 2 years ago. Actually, it's
Yeah, yeah.
exactly 2 years ago, and like 1 or 2 weeks.
Yeah, pretty much spot on from the date we recorded this, yeah.
It's actually very funny because you picked me up, or I think you picked me up from the airport. It was so cool. We got to spend a day in DC and play in front of the monument. This is still one of the coolest round
Yeah,
memories
it's
ever.
it's a very lucky spot that, we actually were it's a small group, but we have part of our community here is doing Tuesdays on the mall. Yeah, so
Oh my god.
it's yeah, it's iconic.
It is really iconic. Probably should post some videos from there. I still have like how I got aced from a couple of people.
Mhm.
But there was a lot of fun. And I played in Central Park. It's also like unreal first being in Central Park as a
Mhm.
European who grew up watching Friends or How I Met Your Mother, whatever. And then you're
Mhm.
there playing Roundnet. And I was actually destroying everyone because Max Mother wasn't there. And it was fun. Like, okay, I'm actually good at this sport, like playing with New
Yeah.
Yorkers. I felt like a local, and it was so much fun. Then I went to Long Island and got destroyed by Tyler, Ryan, and Artie, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Uh, but this it's about memories, and I was very
Yeah.
lucky and fortunate to be able.
I'm really excited to make some more memories at Worlds this summer. It should be a lot of fun and, yeah, a lot of hard work is going into supporting the US team. So,
Okay,
I'm excited for them.
you guys gonna
Hopefully.
win both men and women?
I hope so. That's the task. That's the task.
Again, it's the goal,
Let's
but
get the
I
job done.
women could be very challenging.
Yeah, I don't think either of them will be as easy as they were last time, and last time they weren't that easy either. So,
Yeah, it was also the
Uh,
weather. Now, if it's sunny, it's gonna be different. If it's dry,
yeah,
but
there's a lot of things, a lot of things. We'll see. Time will tell.
Ben, we
That's all I
would
got.
we probably need to do part two because I just I had such a great time talking to you as always, and I think there's so much knowledge that you have in your head that needs to be shared in order for a sport to grow or to become a sport. And I'm very happy that you are able to take time. That you're feeling better because without health,
Me too.
both
Thanks.
are sick a little bit. We have nothing, and I definitely think we should do part two. Maybe not
Yeah,
so
I appreciate you bringing the questions. I'm very happy to share as much information or history as I can to help out Roundnet. It's a big passion of mine, obviously, and yeah, I appreciate everybody that's listening to this and catching all these little stories along the way, and hopefully learning one or two things too.
guys. Thank you so much for listening. Ben, where can people find your work?
Oh man, if you want to go to my YouTube channel, it's just Ben Dantowitz. That's I think where I'm doing probably the most work that's like related to this. Like sometimes I'll do fun breakdowns and talk about Roundnet stuff, and um, yeah, if you're on there, you'll probably it'll help to find any other projects I'm working on, whether it's other content or tournaments I'm running. So YouTube's a good spot to go.
Also, that Roundnet Network. Obviously, if you haven't seen the documentaries, go and check them out for sure. I mean, it is, or even game recaps with the slow mo is so cool. And USA Roundnet, obviously,
Oh
website.
yeah, you can check out the things I work on also. I was just saying if you want to check out me.
Volunteer. But if you're
Yeah.
European, don't volunteer too much. Stay in Europe. We need you. We need you in Europe. We need you in Germany, Austria, and
Yeah,
all the
you're
places.
welcome. You're welcome to reach out if you reach out to me on any socials. I'm always happy to answer questions, and if I can get you connected to the person that's working on something in your country, I'm happy to help you with that too.
Maybe last thing, if you're traveling to the US this summer, whatever, you can hit up Ben so he can put you in contact with people all across the country. It's very well connected. Free couches everywhere, possibly or potentially.
Oh man, I hope I don't get too many messages. But yeah, I'll help you if I can. I'll help you if I can.
I mean, if you do, then I'll just buy a drink because it means a lot of people are listening, which is great because we're making impact. So I'll take that. I think that's okay.
Okay, perfect.
Ben, again, thank you so much. Say hello to your brother, to community
Yeah,
in DC, and we'll hear from each other very soon, I hope.
thanks, Jakob. Take care.
Ataque.
Future Roundnet.